Alright, welcome back guys. Sorry about the outdoor noises. It is way too hot in my shed where I record all this without leaving that door open. So you might hear some birds, might hear some kids out in the background. That's just, sorry, it is what it is. But today I want to review this scope right here. This is a Scarlet 1:8 scope made by Redwin. It is a fiber wire or firewire. I don't remember exactly what they call it, but basically it's a fiber wire reticle. And I was curious whenever they reached out to me for a review of one of the products. I actually saw this and asked for this instead because I've never used one before. And I was curious to see if you can truly get a LPVO that has a daylight bright red dot in order to replace something, you know, like say an EOTech or any other style of red dot or holographic sight. With a magnifier, because this would kind of be your, have your cake and eat it too, where you have a red dot bright reticle along with the ability to, get magnification and see out at distance. So instead of trying to mount something like, say, this right here, where you would mount, say, right around here on the back of an LPVO if you had a Picatinny rail section, which I thought I had one out here. Apparently I don't have one to show you. But if you had a pick rail section, or you had one of the little adapter rings that kind of hook on here and you can attach a red dot to, instead of doing something like this and having more weight or more complexity, if you're not using night vision or something where you don't necessarily need this, you might be able to get away with just having this. So again, I was interested in trying it out because a lot of the other options that are out there that use this technology are more expensive. The primary arms, if I remember right, is somewhere around $350. And they're the cheapest that I could find from a reputable company. I'm sure somebody will come in the comments saying, "Hey, there's this company XYZ makes it," and okay, that's fine. But so whenever I saw this, I didn't realize honestly that there were companies making scopes with that technology for this little price. And mention that now, I think the MSRP on this is like $199 or $200, somewhere around there. You might be able to find it cheaper or more expensive, coupon codes and whatnot. But that's about the price. Let's just say $200. Which is $100 cheaper than the primary arms, and there are some negatives and I think reasons why this is a little bit cheaper than something like that, because there are some downsides to the scope, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But first, let me go over the features so I can just kind of show you what's on here, and hopefully this stays in camera. It's, again, really awkward to do this while staring at a camera screen and trying to look at this thing, but it comes with your standard scope caps that flip up on either side. Honestly, I would leave the front one on and take the rear one off, because the rear one, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it just makes it so much more massive versus you pop that off. It makes it a lot thinner, and it looks more like a traditional red dot whenever you're looking through here versus whenever you have this on here, it just blocks so much of your view. So Redwin, if you're listening, I would actually go to something, let me just take these off altogether. I would go to something kind of like what the Discovery Op is doing, and they just have these little rubber caps just kind of snap on the end. And so you can snap them on the side, put them over here, they stack on each other, and then they're out of the way, or you can just throw these away completely if you don't want to use them. But I prefer something like that because it's there to protect your scope while you're traveling or while it's in a bag or whatever. But while you're shooting, I really don't want these on my scope. So you could just leave them off entirely. That's probably what I would do if I were to use this, but they do come with it. It uses your standard 2032 battery, which I can show you right here in the battery compartment. Again, I'm not going to go over all the features of this. I mainly want to go over my experience, but I just kind of want to show you what's in there. So it does come with the battery. I don't remember the battery life. You'll have to look that up online. Sorry. You can Google just as easily as I can. This is my experience, not a data sheet. It does come with cap turrets. So here's your windage, or here's your elevation, and it says half MOA clicks for 1 click. I don't know if you can hear that or not. They are very tactile and audible. They are fairly solid for what they are. They're not quite as good. Again, I'm going to compare it a lot to this Discovery Op, because this one is just a phenomenal scope, especially for the price. It's just a little bit more overbuilt, so that's going to be a negative. Yeah. That is significantly more tactile and audible. These turrets are just absolutely, they're chunky, but because of that, they are very, very reliable. So it comes with a set, well, not a set. Instead of the 2 scope rings that a lot of LPVOs come with, especially the cheaper ones, this one actually comes with a 1-piece scope ring. So I'm happy with that. I wish it came with something like this. Again, that's a 193 height, because this one, while it's fine for most stuff, it's more comfortable having the 193 height for me, used with an LPVO. Now, whenever I'm shooting prone or, you know, bench rested, it's not a big deal. This height works just fine, but whenever I'm standing, I would prefer something a little taller. So Redwin, if you could include a 193 height scope mount, that would be, in my opinion, better. Or maybe, you know, make it as an option where you can choose either or. That would be nice. The windage on here is also, and I'll show that why this matters in a minute, is also half MOA per click. Now, what I learned is the elevation, if I remember right, I might have this backwards, but I insert footage here and, you know, show you. But if I remember correctly, the elevation is actually a half MOA clicks, versus I believe the windage over here actually moves it 1 MOA clicks. Could have that backwards again, but one basically moves at half MOA, the other one moves at 1 MOA. So I don't know if that's a quality control issue, or if maybe I just got a lemon, you know, or maybe it's just all their scope designs are that way and that's just something that they need to work on. I don't really know. All right, so I'm gonna try to do a little bit more testing to see what the adjustments actually are, because it shifted over here again roughly 2 inches. You can see that my finger, you know, 1 segment, 2 segments, roughly 2 inches. And so I adjusted it 4 clicks to the right, and they're half MOA adjustments, so that should have been 4 clicks, 2 inches. 2 inches, well, should have been right there. They're almost, let's see, so that's 3 right there, and then plus another one, so that's about 4 inches. So each click, from what I'm seeing, is actually an inch, which is not necessarily a good thing. Let me come left 2 clicks and see where it goes. That's roughly a 2-inch shift to the left after I adjusted it 2 clicks. So the clicks are not a half MOA, they are actually 1 MOA clicks, which for an LPVO it's not ideal, but it's not terrible. I would obviously prefer it to be half MOA, but, you know, is it possible I broke something whenever I smacked it? I mean, I guess, but it's consistently moving the same amount, because that was 2 inches, you know, with 2 clicks. And then, where was it? Yeah, down here was roughly a 4-inch or 4 clicks. So it seems to still be holding 0. So I don't think I broke anything. I think that's just the turrets are not actually half MOA, they're 1 MOA clicks. All right, now we're gonna do a tracking test. Now that I know they're 1 MOA adjustments, I'm gonna start in the center, fire 2 rounds, go left like, I don't know, 5 clicks and up 5 clicks, so top left corner, then go over 10, then down 10, then left 10, then up 5 and right 5, which should be back on the center. So that's what I'm gonna do, assuming my caveman brain can remember to do that properly. So I'm not the biggest fan of the turrets as of right now, but this will tell me whether or not it holds 0 and the tracking is at least correct. All right, so I had to go back and watch the video to make sure I actually adjusted it correctly, because this is not great. So here, I believe, is my first 2 shots. So fine, it's pretty well centered. And then this is my left 5 and up 5. It should have been around here. It only moved 2 inches left. It didn't move up at all. Now, I know, like, my shooting wasn't the most, you know, perfect, but it was not that bad. And obviously they were very close, so it's not like I pulled one. So I don't know what the optic did at that point. So then I moved it all the way to the right 10, and it moved the correct amount from where it should have been hitting. I don't know. Maybe I pulled those. It's possible. Maybe, I don't know. But then the next one moved over, and that's roughly 5, but it's only about 2 inches. Maybe 3 at the most. Sorry, hopefully this is still on camera. So it didn't actually go up the correct amount from here. Now, from here down, it was supposed to be 10 clicks, and it's roughly 5 again down here. And again, I'll have to rewatch the video, but I'm 99% sure I went down 10 clicks. So now it's giving me half. So it gave me what it said it should have been giving me right here. Now then I went over here, and here, and that I would say is 6, 7, 8, 9. That is 10 inches. So from here to over here is roughly 10 inches. So this is 10, so that's correct. This is only 5. I don't know. So maybe the left and right is accurate and is a half MOA, but the up and down elevation is only, or is one, I don't know. They're off. That's all I can say. So it's holding 0. It's being consistent, but the turret tracking is not, it's not good. Now, to its credit, it more or less returned to 0. Again, that's within about a 2-inch group. So between me, the reticle, it being windy and all that kind of stuff, I would say that was probably user error, not the scope itself. So it returned back to where it started. So I mean, that's something, which again tells me that something else with the tracking is not good. Now granted, you're not using an LPVO for, you know, tracking purposes, especially if it has capped turrets, but that right there is kind of annoying. And then that's also annoying. Like, this is fine and that's fine, but I don't understand why those are off. So I'm again going to lump this into the category of a range toy, you know, maybe a training tool or something like that. But from what I'm seeing, that does not inspire confidence.
Is that a big deal? Yeah, kind of, because honestly, whenever you're spending $200 on something, you expect it to be correct. So I mean, if they change that to say, you know, this one's 1 MOA, that one's half MOA, okay, fine, I would give it a pass. That would be weird numbering wise, but again, could be a fluke. I don't know. Maybe I messed something up, because before I actually tested to see how accurate all the windage and elevation turrets were, I beat the snot out of this thing with a small toolbox. So maybe I broke something. I don't know, but I just want to throw that disclaimer in there.
See what that does. All right, let's see if it held 0. I did adjust it from last time. It should be dead on at 100. Find out. Let's turn on that dot. That dot makes it way easier to be precise. That's embarrassing. All right. That was a good trigger pull. See you the next one. Let's go see if it held 0 after that. All right, so after hitting a bunch with my little toolbox, this is where the 0 was originally, and I moved it down 1 inch. So it should have been right on here after that last adjustment. And here's my group after hitting it. So that one could have been me. We'll just go with these two. So these are basically about in line where it should have been, but it is roughly an inch, maybe 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 off to the left. So the windage turret or adjustment on the inside did move, but it still retained 0, so nothing broke on the inside. I want to adjust it back over and make sure it's working correctly. So is it the most durable optic? No, but you know, it's 200 bucks. Usually get what you pay for. Now, that said, the Discovery optics that I had did hold 0 to that same test, so I may have been a little bit more aggressive with this one. At some point, I'll actually destroy an LPVO, but I just want to kind of show you it is going to lose 0, and that's true of most scopes. If you drop it or it takes a significant impact, they're fairly delicate because there's a lot going on the inside, so it's going to move some. So that's not the worst I've ever seen. I've seen, you know, stuff just go wildly off. So I'm going to return it and see if it'll hold 0 again.
Because to be fair, whenever you buy a $200 scope, the accuracy of the tracking is probably not something that's on your mind, especially for something like this. An LPVO, in my opinion, is not designed for changing windage and elevation. Whenever you're like, oh, well, let me, you know, lick my finger and see what the wind is blowing. Let me dial it so many times this way or this way. That's not really what you're going to be doing. You're going to be Kentucky windage in it, or you're going to be using the BDC reticle, that's in which this one does not have, but most, you know, some other options do have that. you're not going to turn off spin off your turrets and your caps and then adjust it and then put it back on and then have to redo it again because your target's moved or whatever. This is more of a set it to 0 and then forget it, at least in my opinion. There are markings on the inside where you can kind of use those, as math instead of using this. So to me, the turrets are for 0 and that's it. So is that a big deal? No, I was able to 0 it and it retained 0 even after beating and shooting it a bunch and doing a bunch of other stuff with it. It was still retained 0. So that to me isn't all that big of a deal. Should it be fixed? Yes, but for $200, I'll give it a pass. One of the issues though, I did have it after I beat it with the toolbox, and again, I didn't hit it all that hard. I did the same thing with this LPVO and the other one that Discovery Ops sent me a while back, the tan one. These did not move at all. They didn't lose 0 whenever they got hit a bunch. This one actually did. I think it shifted about 3 inches left after taking what I would consider a pretty good beating. It's more than most people are going to feel comfortable doing to their optic. Now at some point, I'm going to be doing a durability test on, I think, this one. I might try to destroy this one too. I haven't decided yet. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see me destroy both of these scopes, because as you can tell, I destroyed a bunch of red dots back here, and I plan on mounting this Nightwing on top of one of these on a mount, and then dropping a rifle directly on this to see, 1, if it crushes this, and then 2, to see if that pressure on the rings actually crushes the scope, because a lot of people mount red dots, somewhere on the scope, and they don't realize, well, whenever you drop your rifle, all of the weight of the rifle, the optic, and everything is going to be on whatever is the tallest. And if this is the tallest, it's going to take the blunt force, but also all that force is going to be on just a small area right here. So I think that's something that I would like to see tested, because a lot of people don't take that into consideration whenever they, think about durability for their optic. All right, so back into the features. Again, it does have a 1 to 8 power magnification level, but it is backwards, which is weird. So 8x is over to the left, 1x is over on the right. So that's backwards of pretty much every scope I've ever used. So is that a negative? Not really. It's just different. So just know that, get into it. You have your, eye adjustment right here for your specific eyes. And the glass clarity on this thing is phenomenal. Out to 810 yards, I was able to see the target clearly. And now granted, this was a sunny day, but it was also a humid day in the south. So you kind of get that, I don't know, it's not fog, but it's just really humid air where you can see it. It's kind of a foggy look. In the video footage that you'll see, it looks foggy, or it looks like the glass is dirty. It's not. That's just me recording through this thing, through my phone, attached to this. So to my eyes, this actually has incredibly clear glass. I would put it almost on par with the Discovery Op. The Discovery Op is just slightly better because, again, the end over here, the lens is bigger, and the lens on the front is bigger. All right, so here's a better camera footage. That is 300 yards on there. There's a target I knocked down earlier. You can see just kind of how large that reticle is. That plate down there is about the size of, I don't know, a little bit bigger than your hand. So that kind of gives you an idea. And right now the setting is on 5. I can actually turn that down a little bit, so a little bit too right. That's better. There's 400, 550 down there. It's clearer in person. Again, it's recording through my phone right now. So, but this is as clear as I can get it. It looks way hazier right now than it does in real life. In real life, that's a pretty clear image. So I just want to give you kind of an idea of what it looks like and what the reticle looks like. Let's turn up that reticle all the way. That's on the brightest setting. Again, plenty bright. There's on a 1. You can actually see it, which is interesting. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so glass clarity is fine. I will show you. You won't be able to see it. Maybe you'll be able to see it. I don't know. I'll show you pictures. You're not going to be able to see it on here. But the main thing about this that I was interested in testing was the fiber wire reticle. So what that means, and I'll again insert footage or video here, but what that means is there's basically a piece of fiber optic wire that is attached to the reticle, and it goes all the way down to the center of the reticle, and then it has like a 45-degree angle cut on it, so that wire coming out, or the light coming out of the wire, looks like a circle. And I will say, it does work really well. Just walking around the house with it or going shooting at the range, that wire or that light coming from that wire is incredibly useful versus something like this that has an etched reticle with an LED emitter basically shining on that material that reflects it back. This does not get daylight bright at all. It helps you see if you're aiming in at a black target on the brightest setting, you can kind of see that red, so it will give you a usable reticle if you're aiming at something dark in the full sunlight. but it does not give you a usable, like a red dot. It just doesn't happen. You're just going to have to accept the fact that whatever the reticle is what you're aiming with. Versus on this, it gives you a very, very bright red dot. And I mean, it is actually incredibly bright. I was using this on either the 4 or the 5 setting in full sunlight, because whenever I went higher, it was actually too bright and it kind of bloomed a little bit. So I don't think there's any situation or lighting condition you'll find yourself in where this reticle does not get bright enough. Indoors, I was using it on like 2 or 3, I think, if I remember correctly, and it looked kind of like a standard red dot at that point. So I really like how bright this thing gets. Because of that, you know, the battery life may not be as good. You'll have to look into the stats of what you consider acceptable. For me, I replace a battery every now and then, and all of my optics, it's not a big deal. I don't care about battery life. If you're so worried about battery life and, you know, the world is ending and you need electronics, you're probably dead long before the battery dies anyway, so what does it really matter? If not, you live in the United States, you can buy batteries. But I really do like this reticle. And not just because it is functional as a red dot, kind of. I still don't like LPVOs using it as a red dot because you get that fishbowl effect. And you get that fishbowl effect with this. Now, it's not as bad as some of the cheaper LPVOs, but in my opinion, it's not as good as this one. But it's still pretty good. If I remember correctly, I think second focal planes, which this one is, actually give you a little bit better, just non-fishbowliness, I guess, if that's a phrase. But you're still going to get that because, I mean, there's just a bunch of lenses on the inside of here, and that's just kind of the name of the game. So my brain is so used to using EOTechs that I'm used to having just basically crystal clear picture, no fishbowling, and just the dot is just there, or the reticle is just there, versus something like this. You kind of get sucked into it, like looking at this one compared to looking into this one. And again, this one gives you a wider field of view, at least to my brain. It might, when it comes to the actual specs on this as well, I don't know. But this one looks more like a red dot because you don't see the body because its lens is so big, if that makes sense. Versus this one, you're kind of looking down the toilet paper tube a little bit to some degree because the two images you're getting are slightly different. So is that a training issue? Yeah. I mean, you could get away with that. You could get around it if you train with this thing enough. But for me, I'm not willing to put the time into it. Honestly, I'm a little bit biased. I could completely admit that. So, but if you're looking for something that does give you a red dot capable optic and it's daylight bright, this is the cheapest one I've come across because it is usable for that. Now, I will say also, whenever aiming at distance, because the reticle, and that's another negative about the reticle in this thing, the reticle is chunky. It is a thick reticle. But that's because it has to have that fiber wire that can go down it and not, you know, be seen, obviously. So you're going to get a thicker reticle, so I was not able to be as precise with this thing. So if you're buying this for target shooting, just know that's not what this is. The reticle on something like this is far thinner and you're able to be more precise. This is more of combat accuracy, in my opinion. Now, at about 100 yards, it reminded me, like if you stuck a Sharpie up against a target, that's about how thick the reticle is at about 100 yards. So it's still able to be, you know, around 1 MOA capable, but it covers up a decent amount of the target. Now, I will say, whenever you use the fiber part of this, whenever you turn on the illumination, it does make that a smaller aiming point, if that makes sense, or at least it does in my brain. So I would use the illumination just all the time. Like, I would never turn it off. Well, while I'm using it, I would turn it off whenever I'm not using it. But if I'm shooting with this thing, I have the illumination on no matter what the lighting conditions, because it makes it a better precise aiming point and it just draws your eye to it. So I like that about it. All right, so all that aside, would I buy this? If you are looking for a LPVO that has daylight bright reticle, as in a red dot, and that's what you want, and you don't want to spend a bunch of money, then yeah, I would say go ahead and buy this. It does hold 0 as long as you aren't going to abuse it. Would I put this on any sort of serious use gun? Absolutely not. It did not hold 0 whenever I beat it. That's not uncommon when it comes to cheaper scopes. A lot of scopes, just in general by their very nature, are kind of fragile. So, you know, you can take that into consideration. But for something like this, it's actually a little bit cheaper. Granted, it uses different technology. This is significantly more durable. But you don't have daylight bright red dot with this. So, you know, you kind of choose what you want. If you want something a little bit more durable, the primary arms would probably be a better choice. But if you're just wanting to try something out, try out the fiber wire, you know, $200 gives you a little practice, and you can still throw this on another gun, you know, if you want to down the range. It's just a range toy. Or, you know, sell it to your friend, or, you know, destroy it like I did. If you just, you know, kind of, I like buying cheaper things to test out to see if I like the concept. before I commit to spending $1,000 or $2,000. And in the long run, that does save me money versus if I just bought a whole bunch of optics at $1,000, decided I didn't like them. So there's that. So would I buy it for duty? No. Would I buy it for a range toy or for something? Sure. Would I buy it for home defense? Maybe. As long as it's somewhere where it's not going to get abused or anything, yeah, it's going to hold zero, fine. I didn't have any issues when it come to that. And in home defense distances, inside of 100 yards, you're not using the turrets over here anyway, so that's pretty much irrelevant. If y'all have any questions, again, if you want me to destroy these optics, I plan on doing a destruction test on at least one of these, maybe both. I haven't quite decided yet. Obviously, I've destroyed those over there, so I don't care about these things. They're just extra stuff I have going on. But if you want to see that, let me know. If you have any questions specifically about this option right here, and again, I just wanted to review it because this is the cheapest option that gives you that fiber optic illumination. But if you have any questions, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That really helps because, again, YouTube doesn't like this kind of stuff. Share the video. That helps a lot, and I appreciate y'all watching. Have a good one.